Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're going to be talking about the depiction of blindness in art. Like some of the one of the earliest depiction of somebody who's blind in like a painting or a wall relief is in like the ancient Egyptian wall relief where we had like, remember those dancing musicians where they had like the dancer maidens. Well, one of the musicians in the background, he had his eyes closed, and that's how they were depicting that this musician was blind because the way that Egyptian art works is that it's all works of a spell. So, in order for this person to be recognizable in the afterlife, Horus needs to know that he is the blind person that's coming for his last day, for his final judgment day. So if the person that they were depicting in the wall was so then they had to make certain that the person that they were depicting, even though they were idealized for the afterlife, they still had to retain some semblance of the person that they were, the flesh and blood person that they were like back when they were alive. So yeah, this musician was famous enough in order to make it to like the period, to like a wall relief. Cause like Egyptian pharaohs, they like to take, including their favorite musicians, into the afterlife. Cause like you gotta have like music in the afterlife. Cause that's just the way that Egyptians rule. Like the other famous culture of like artwork or that features like a blind person is from the 2nd century, and it's a bust of Homer. And he's the Greek guy that they force you to read in like high school. You may have your and he was a famous blind poet back in the day. And it's interesting in all of his plays that he starts by his opening scene is usually him asking the muses to act at his eyes in order for him to describe like this epic battle. Like if you read like the Iliad and his description and stuff, it's like pretty amazing that he was able to imagine all of the stuff. But he was just very talented at describing scenes based on his imagination, cause he couldn't like see. Oh yeah. When we get to like the medieval ages, the only blind folks that were ever depicted were characters from like the Bible. But I didn't want to show you a painting of Jesus healing a blind person, cause that was being done to death. But this one is a placing his son Jacob. And in the Bible story, Jacob and his mother are taking advantage of the blind Isaac in order to steal the blessing that was meant for like the brother Esau. So it's one of the earliest depiction of like seeing people taking advantage of like a blind person. And that's in the Bible. It's just horrible that it happened, but it's a very tangible reality that people who see tend to be like the absolute worst to people that can't see. And then now we move to like the Renaissance era, and once we get to the Renaissance, the blind folks that are depicted in art, they start moving away from just being Bible scenes and just making it more genre paintings, because blindness in like the Renaissance period before the birth of modern Venetian was something extremely common, that because since you were like always reading by candlelight and something, like people tended to go blind like a lot quicker back in like the Renaissance period. They didn't have like the technology in order to take care of like the cataracts, that which was one of the most common ways for people to lose their sight. They didn't have like good medicine in order to treat that, or even the concept that they could even do that, because those operations in order to remove the cataracts, they were actually invented by the Egyptians, but then it was lost to the technology, and that science and the knowledge was lost through time. The long and short of it is that there were a lot of blind folks in like the Renaissance period. So much so that they started to becoming a more common like subject matter for them to depict. And in this one, in Peter Bruegger's, is a Parade of the Blind, and it's literally the blind leading the blind, because they had to live in together in groups, and because they couldn't just rely on seeing eye people, because people in Renaissance period, they would burn cats alive for their own amusement. The people back then were awful, god awful. The things that the hyper religious people of the Renaissance period were like, seriously, like they were just god awful. So they had to just group together, because you couldn't trust seeing people, because they would abuse you for their own amusement. And heck, even this painting is kind of like poking fun at them, because like in the foreground, one of the blind persons like fell up on the front, and then it's showing that they're gonna start falling over like lemmings. This one in the Baroque period, they start treating the subject matter of people who were blind with a bit more respect. And this one is by George de la Tour, and he's a blind and Gertie player. So then we go back to the ancient Egyptian trope of painting cliche at this point, of painting a blind musician. But over here, it's not like it's showing him with dignity. It's not like this Peter Bruegger's painting, the Renaissance, where they would depict blind people in a humoristic fashion. Cause in the Renaissance, they found it so hilarious to see people struggling to survive. But over here, they're treating them more with dignity. This one is also in the Baroque period by Rembrandt. Anna and the blind Tobit. So then here's Anna. Yeah, helping this person out, and then here's a blind fellow, but it's a blind person from like from like the Bible time, but not so much from like the New Testament, where Jesus was like curing people left and right. No, it's just treating blindness is a part of life, and it just and it's pretty common in old age. So it's just an aspect of life that you just gotta deal with. That more make peace with, to be more exactly. And this one is 1632, The Blind Old Beggar, by Giuseppe de Riviera. And then over here had the blind beggar, and here's his seeing-eyed little child. Yeah, it could be a reference to El Lazarillo de Torme, because the Lazarillo de Torme is a famous story about is from Spain, about a child that gets hired. When he turns 12, his mother has like another kid, so then since she can't take care of both children, she gets her son a job as the seeing-eye boy of a blind beggar. And then the beggar is like the absolute worst of him, but there's wisdom within his cruelty. Because one of his earliest lessons is don't let your guard down, because the kid had found a way to like outwit him in order to steal his wine. So then he was because he dug a hole in the wine barrel, and then he sealed it with wax. So then when the blind beggar was drinking his wine by the fireplace, the wax will melt, and then the kid was able to drink the wine of the beggar. And then he'd be like, how's this? Where's my wine going? But yeah, it's another example of a scene person taking a ride. In this case, the Lazarillo and they were always like they were frenemies. Because later on, when she meets other masters that were worse than the blind, because once the blind beggar sees that the kid lets his guard down, he drops the carafe of wine into his mouth, and then that's how the kid loses all of his baby teeth. I want. And then afterwards, to add a sense of irony, the blind beggar used the wine in order to clean the wounds that he inflicted on the child. And then the life lesson that he gave the kid is don't let your guard down.
Like it's interesting because at the very end of the story that happens, it's one of those stories that starts at the beginning, but the beginning is the end, and then you see the journey. He's talking to a judge explaining how he became rich.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
talking about all of the life experiences and master that he had before he.
yeah, all of the stuff he learned, and the thing that helped him survive was all of the life lessons that he learned from the blind beggar. That he taught him street smart.
And the priest taught him how to be a con artist, and now he taught him how to trick people into giving him money. And
Yeah, like how to, yeah, like cause the knight taught him how to like trick women into paying him for free food. So from the night he learned seduction.
yeah, like he eventually has like his own business and whatever, and he's telling the story to like a person that's recording everything.
Yeah, cause he was able to, cause he learned a lot of life lessons from like the from
Various,
from his various masters. But the main ones he learned from the blind beggar that taught him to use his wits and never let his guard down. Cause he always falls into disaster whenever he lets his guard down. But yeah, but yeah, the thing that this painting is referencing when you see an old blind guy and a little beggar.
and that's also where the term Lazarus to describe a person who helps out.
Lazarillo in
It comes
Spanish.
from that.
Yeah, that was a legit job that children could get back then. Seeing eye child. Cause you couldn't, cause they didn't. The dogs will, you know how like today they have like dogs that like help people and stuff. But back then the dogs were like for either hunting or for people's mouth amusement. They didn't have the whole thing of creating.
Just running rampant.
Oh yeah, oh they were just ravenous, biting people left and right. So so for like blind folks, their only option was to get a seeing eye human and hope that the little devil wasn't gonna take advantage of them. Milagro, it did. The Lazarillo, yeah, it did. It stole his wine.
His wine, his food, his clothing, like they were at each other's way.
Yeah, like the
Like
constant.
it's supposed to be a comedy, but it's a very cruel comedy.
Yeah, it's a it's Spanish dark humor. But yeah, we've spoken enough about Lazarillo de Torme. This one is 1558, Blind Orion Searching for the Rising Sun by Nicolas Fusa. Well, but yeah, so yeah, here's the blind Orion, and here's his seen eye human on his shoulder, and he has a bow and arrow. So it kind of like reminds me a bit of the blind archer from like Dark Souls. So being a blind archer is a mythological thing. It's not like Dark Souls, like being the absolute worst by creating an unrealistic demand of blind people telling them you're blind, but you can also be an archer.
No, this is actually something from mythology.
Yeah, it's yeah. The one being able is they were referencing a mythological figure, but they omitted the little his seen eye little human that walked on that stood on his shoulder. So yeah, they seen eye person. Everyone has
We're
one.
talking about that giant guy that shot Calamy down from the sky with an arrow.
Yeah. Just, but well, then again, Kaname was like flying and yelling out. You can kind of guess where the dragon go. Rah! This one is 1778, The Blind Guitar Player by Francisco de Goya. So here's the blind guitarist and like the people listening to sing. So it's just your standard. And see, he even has his own seeing eye little boy. That's help, the kid that helps him. So yeah, the kid doesn't have any skills yet, but he can, but he, at least he can see. So then, so that's usually, at least in Spanish and in the Europe back in the day, that was a common pair of that you will see. Seeing a child and the adult who does the work, and if it's the kid and the kid like a symbiosis relationship.
And the kid learns a trade from the other.
From the blind musician or the blind beggar or whatever scam they're running. Cause or legitimate trade, cause it was difficult surviving just being just having all of your limbs was difficult surviving in Europe, and let alone being blind, where people back then used to amuse themselves by being at the absolute worst to people who had
Yeah, people civilization. They're very proud of that.
yeah, they're very proud of it,
Like you will see a lot of European written books talking about how they're the peak of civilization.
But yeah, when they're the absolute worst. Yeah. The peak of severity. You're the peak of bullies. That's what you are. That's what you are, Europe. The peak of absolute. They were bad to people from another country, and then they were bad to the weak of their own country, and bad to women and witches, and people who just looked at them funny and whatever. This one is Tobias and his blind father, and then Tobias is a blind person that shows up a lot in the Bible. And then over here he's showing he's having his father meet the wife that he was able to get thanks to the help of the angel.
Tobias shows up in the unedited Catholic Bible. For some reason, a lot of the Protestant Bible they call it Tobias, Ubid, and Esther from there. And then they claim that we added those. So it's like a very weird back and forth whether this is actually in the Bible or not. So if you're wondering who the heck Tobias is, you're probably a Protestant.
Yeah.
And that's why you haven't heard of this character.
No, let's not get into it. But now that you know the where Tobias.
He is in one version of the Bible, but he may not be in your version of the Bible, depending on your denomination.
Yeah, or even time period, because we don't know if the new Pope threw Tobias out the window.
Every year they edit the Bible, and then they tell you that it's never been edited.
Yeah.
Like we can go years explaining how many times it's been re-edited and retconned.
Yeah, the Bible is one of those that been retconned billions of times, while the popes and everyone involved in the edition process pretend that no, it's always been like that. This is like the director pay no attention to all of the edits. You know what that hasn't been edited? Apocalypse, because those who edit Apocalypse are cursed. The Apocalypse came with a curse.
And you thought you spoke, we will mess you up.
If you add something to the Apocalypse, you will receive the 7 plagues. And if you remove something from the Apocalypse, you're gonna go to hell. You're gonna hell. So that
you're gonna see that Apocalypse is different from the other books in the fact that it's
that it hasn't been edited because the book is it has a curse in it. So if you're like another denomination and you're editing Apocalypse, that's yeah. Oh, that one's mine. Alright, this one is 1850. The blind Vertros with his daughter, and it's by Jan Matejko. And then here's his just a young maiden looking after her blind father. And you can notice here in the background this person just giving it a very evil look, because you're even as late as the 1850, like the Europeans were like the absolute worst. So then they treated with disdain anyone that they perceive as weak. Yeah, and here in the foreground you see that here are the feet of Christ. So then it's the girl taking her father to church. So then yeah, and then she even has a devotional prayer book. It's a good daughter taking care of her blind dad.
There's also an interpretation that some crazy person made that said that blindness and disease were actually curses from God because she did something horrible. So for a long time in Europe, and even now, if you can believe it, the fundamentalists they see that as being cursed, and they will shun you in church.
Yeah.
It's weird. And,
yeah.
I don't really know what Jesus does.
Yeah, Jesus says, "Bring everyone to me, and I love everyone." And look at my hot prostitute friend Mary Magdalene. We are totally not dating. Wink. That's actually a gospel of Mary Magdalene, where she claims that I was Jesus Christ's favorite prophet. But then again, if you read all of the gospels that didn't make it to the Bible, all of the apostles say that they were Jesus Christ's favorite apostle.
Yeah, I swear they all have that.
Yeah, they all have that. They want to feel special, even though Jesus in his Bible he said, "To if you want to be number one, you gotta be the last. You gotta stay humble, and you gotta be the last person." So the humility clause is one that,
And none of the apostles seem to understand that.
yeah. It's one of those that didn't quite quite fit. They didn't quite get the concept of humility. Even when they say, "I am the most humble person in all of Christendom," you're not getting humility.
That's not
That's the humility.
Cornelius is the apostle, so over there he really hammered down their whole.
Stay humble. This one is 1856, The Blind Girl by John Everett Miles. So then in this painting we have this maiden with her scene. Again we see the common trope of the blind musician. It's a cliche at this point. Like if you're gonna they're gonna depict a blind person, they better know how to play music.
Yeah, that eventually evolves into ableism and a lot of things that you see today in movies.
Yeah, so ableism has its roots in ancient Egypt.
All the stamp itself and it's terrifying that it persists after 8,000 or 9,000 years.
Yeah, because the first blind person, one of the first blind person that was depicted, he was a musician, and then the other unrealistic expectation, be as awesome as the blind poet Homer, who had like he's seen eye fades. Oh yeah, so then like in this one, the little girl is looking at the rainbows and stuff, while the blind maiden she's listening to the birds.
Yeah, that's another ableist trope. The blind people have super hearing.
Yeah, super hearing, but or something. But yeah, you can see the start of all of those ableist cliche in Western art. This one is 1870, The Arrival of the Schoolgirl to a Blind Father by Vasily Perov. Like this one is it's just the father feeling his daughter's face. I guess they haven't seen each other in like, well, obviously. What? Where? Well, he hasn't felt his daughter's face in like forever, and he wants to see how his girl grew. That's what I see. Because that's why he's touching her face, because like, oh my little girl, you've grown so much. Because he sees he sees with touching, even like the eyes. You can actually see like the cataracts in his eyes. So
They're expressive. It's like
yeah, they're very expressive. So yeah, it's more of a naturalistic depiction of someone who's blind, and look at that. He's not. He doesn't have like a harmonica or a piano or anything that to tie him with the cliche of the blind musician.
it's just a genuinely well-made paint.
Yeah, yeah, very tender moment of the blind father touching the face of his daughter too, because they haven't been in the same room in a while, because she's been in school, and anyone who not, and back in those days you were sent to like an expensive boarding school, and you wouldn't like deal with your parents for months or even years, while you were just at the mercy of the sadistic school teachers of those days. And yes, the words are they stick, and it's very, and even as late as the 1930s, cause
no, in Cuba they still beat you in school.
oh yeah, in Cuba and a bunch of other countries, just a stone's throw away, they still beat children in Cuba. And the work here, well, I don't know if they still do
They still do that.
yeah, they send you to like farm and stuff. Education's for free, but you gotta go work as a slave in a farm. To do to like all of those tobaccos that like
Movies
yeah, those puros and stuff.
Paid by force.
By child labor in Cuba, so you're smoking child labor right over there.
And it's not even like they're paid; they're forced to do it for free. They want to continue studying, or they become beggar.
Yeah,
it's like you either come here and use your tiny hands to make those tobaccos, or you're a failure to the government. Now visit Cuba and be happy about that.
Yeah. So yeah, and smoke your Cuban cigar habanos. Be happy you're smoking child labor. You.
Horrible monster that don't care about anything.
Yeah. All right, this one is 1874. Homer and his guide. So then here we have the blind poet Homer. He has his fancy harp, and then this is his seeing eye boy. And then as you can see, this is why they didn't have any seeing eye dogs, because like the dogs back then were freaking were vicious. Here's a dog barking at him, and the boy has to carry with him a sack full of rocks in order to hit whatever
That
dog.
dog is not there to help him. That dog is attacking Homer right now.
Yeah. Like he's just trying to keep his cool, and the kid is looking at the dog, and in the background there's some. No, actually, it almost looks like the shepherds. They send the dogs to attack the blind horn, the boy, because see how the dogs are going this way forward. So yeah, you see, it's sighted people sending their ravenous dogs to attack a blind person for their own amusement. Yeah, this painting perfectly captures just how awful people how awful were Europeans to blind
The
people.
personal democracy and the people that they keep telling us to imitate, right there.
Yeah, this is
This is the example that the teacher in school you should imitate.
yeah, this is your European god, the absolute worst, being horrible to blind people. And this is a painting from the 1874, so this happened in NASA. They made a fancy painting about it. This one is 1880, Blind Man, and he has an instrument, so it's by Konstantin Makovich. So again, the cliche of the blind traveling musician.
I feel this painting would have just worked with just him like that,
Yeah.
without the instrument.
This is 1880, Blind Pew by N.C. White. So this was not a blind musician. It's just a regular blind person who lost his hat and he's looking for it. So he doesn't even have he doesn't even have like a little seeing eye human. It's just him and his wits wandering the wilderness and hoping not to run into coyotes, because it looks like a good place for a coyote. I think there's a bat in the background or something.
No, I think it's just Claroscuro playing tricks at the eye, or like a trigonal.
Yeah. But yeah, just
Claroscuro, as much as people love it, you can tell if you're looking at a shadow or that's just fresh stroke that shines.
yeah, it's like it's too oscuro. It's too oscuro. It's too dark. You can't see anything. This one is 1882, Jules Bastien Lepingue, The Blind Beggar. Like, this is interesting because usually they show older people blind, but over here is it's actually showing that you can be blind even if you're young. So then this child was probably like born blind, which is a legit condition that folks suffer from. I think maybe like it was caused by lead poisoning back in the day that the mother.
Yeah, this is already industrial revolution.
Yeah, there was a lot, there was a time period in like in the industrial revolution where they were shoehorning lead into everything, and
kind of odd, like.
But yeah, so then since he's a child, then a beggar child, then he has a seeing eye dog that he was able to tame.
Yeah, and dogs right now are not as.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like dogs are more calm than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
We have gotten attacked by dogs in Cuba.
The dogs are hungry in Cuba and they are ravenous. Rabid dog. Very common in Cuba. And consider whatever. Enough about Cuba. Nobody cares about Cuba. But yeah, it's a blind beggar show, and he's putting his money and he's using his boot in order to ask for alms, and it's a realistic depiction because it's not the cliche of a blind musician. No, it's just a kid struggling to survive, and for 5 pennies he made a painting of the kid, or maybe he didn't even pay the kid and he just sketched him and then he went back home. Cause artists, they don't make that much money, and they be cheap if they're able to. This one, oh my god. Okay, this one is the Blind in the Sunshine in 1885 by Anne Archer. And it's a blind old woman by the side, just a woman even in her house, just existing, not one of those blind musician cliches, just a realistic depiction of somebody who went blind in her old age, which was very common back then. This one is 1896, a study of the head of a blind man by Gustav Klimt. So, like I said, if you notice, like in most of the, a good chunk of the paintings featuring blind folks, they came out between the 1850s and the start of the 20th century. Like the same way that people went nuts for Ophelia. There was a weird, there was the fascination with depicting blind people for like at least 50 years.
Oh yeah, and yes, that is the Gustav Klimt. Like he had all the stuff besides the ones that you were taught in school.
Yeah, like he painted other things other than gold.
Oh, he likes gold.
So much gold. This one is Breakfast of a Blind Man by Pablo Picasso, and it's from his blue period. He tended to paint, well, obviously in blue, but also very like sad and somber painting, and he's just a blind person just trying to find his jug of water and like eating stale bread, cause it's hard finding a job.
Finding a job, period.
It's hard finding a job, period, and then let alone even just getting out of the house. You being a blind person in like the early 20th century, and like having the terrible chance of running into like the absolute worst type of people. And don't forget that just less than 30 years ago, that they were sending ravenous dogs to attack blind people back in Europe. Like I know it's a depiction of a mythological thing, but sometimes you use mythology in order to like display a modern day problem, and that's what William Adolphe Bouguereau did. This one is 1906 Blind Man of Toledo by Joaquin Sorolla. And he is the blind man of Toledo. Just I don't know if it's like a wandering musician. I don't see any instruments. It's just a blind old man wandering about just Toledo, just trying to survive.
Hanging out.
Oh, just hanging out. Also, I don't think like there were a lot of homes back then. Like that was something else that.
Toledo was destroyed by war.
Yeah. Well, this is 1906. I don't think it has happened yet. Like Toledo's still more or less in one piece.
No, I was talking about the Spanish.
Yeah, but that was the Napoleon period. I think by now it's been rebuilt in order to get trash again in like World War I or something. Whatever, we're getting sidetracked. Blind Man of Toledo. This one is 1913, The Blind by Egon Schialle. I probably butchered that name.
Oh,
Yeah, so somewhere, I think maybe this is the blind person over here, but Anna said, well, yeah, it has the cataract eye. So yeah, here in this abstract-ish painting, there's the blind person. And this one, 1920, the blind musician Jose Gutierrez. Here's the blind musician cliche again. And this one is 1951, Blind Children Feel an Elephant by Zoe Coe. Like the blind children touching an elephant is also a reference to whatchamacallit. Like remember that the Kabbalistic metaphor no, that the God is like like God is like an elephant.
Blindness, Zero.
Yeah, the God is like an elephant, and then you're in a dark room feeling about for it. So then those who touch the trunk, they think that God is a giant snake, and those who touch the tusk, they think that God looks about a different way, and that's how they explain how God appears different to different people, because we're like blind people feeling something that's so massive that we can never just feeling around for it. We cannot even see it. So then That's what this painting is also referencing, a very deep Kabbalistic
Yeah, never mind how we got our hands on those books.
whatever. But the point is that this is a reference to a Kabbalistic something, just children feeling about for forgotten stuff, blind children. All right, so yeah, that's the last painting, and these are blind folks depicted in how they're depicted in Western art. Overall, you got like two different flavors. You got like either the cliche of the blind musician, or sometimes very rarely, sometimes they were used them as the butt of a joke, especially during the Renaissance period, where like the people were peak awful.
And you also got the ones that weren't able to show them.
And just natural, just depict them as how they see them, in a very naturalistic setting, without forcing them into the requirement of needing to play an instrument in order to be worthy of being a painting. Just the tangible reality that if you're in Europe, you're gonna, and most of the time you're gonna go blind because of all of the lead poisoning and the weird water stuff, and just poor sanitation.
So
Yeah. So yeah,
things were still
yeah.
big civilization.
Peak civilization. Bye bye and God bless.